Mr. Hines?
Here.
Mr. Brandolino? Mr. Zelko?
Here.
Ms. McDonald? Chief Forsythe?
Here.
Mr. Babbage? Mr. Cornelius?
Here.
Mr. Gould? Dr. Pacillos? Dr. Stripes?
Here.
Dr. Terrell? We have a quorum.
We do.
6, right?
6. We have 11 members appointed. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome to the Will County Board of Health meeting of June 18, 2014. We've been asked to make this flow pretty quick, which I'm happy to do, and we are not going to be having a meeting next month, so there will be some things that we'll be talking about to get prior approval before we end this meeting. However, we haven't got the documentation on at least one item. Other than that, I'll ask the Executive Director for his comments, please.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a couple of brief comments I would like to make. First off, there has an additional member has been appointed to the Board of Health, a physician, Dr. George Pitsalos. Dr. Pitsalos will be attending his first meeting in August. So that brings the complement back up to 11. And the 12th member is also a physician that is currently being recruited by the county board through the county executive office. And we hope to have that individual named shortly. And that'll get us back to our full complement of 12 members. One comment I'd like to make, this is something I think we touched on quite a while ago, and that is there was a request made to attempt to increase bus route access here. We have a lot of folks that we serve on the PACE, I think it's on our line 504, Route 504. A lot of people use this bus line. And what we were hearing was that the schedule was on the hour, so it was every hour. And a lot of the patients, and I know at the Community Health Center, were attempting to either get their appointments cut short because, I have to leave, I have to be done by so-and-so, the bus is going to be leaving. So we were successful at working with PACE for the majority of our day, we've added an extra half hour in there. So now the bus route is every 30 minutes in lieu of an hour. A little more flexibility for folks. And trust me, that's not an easy thing to do, working with PACE to get that accomplished. So efforts of the health department, working with some county officials, we were successful at making that happen. So I think that's a big thing for our clients.
And they're a government agency, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Working hand in hand with us.
Yeah. Okay, the next item, are you finished?
Yes.
Sorry. The next item is approval of the minutes for the May 21st, 2014 regular session and executive session. These minutes were included in your packet, and if you've had a chance to read them, if there's any changes or amendments, please say so now. If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Mr. Brandolino.
Second.
Mr. Cornelius. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Now we'll go to the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, or sorry, good afternoon. In front of you, I placed a additional statement of expenditures for May 2014. It was brought to my attention just before the meeting that you may have received the wrong one. It was a matter of putting the wrong attachment on the email to Stephanie, and I apologize for that. When we get to the document, I'll make sure it should be the one ending with 42.8%. So I apologize for that oversight, but it has been corrected. Okay, so let's go back to our first page, our report of receipts and expenditures. Our beginning balance for the month of May was just over $3.3 million. We did receive a levy distribution of just over $2.5 million. So our total receipts for the month of May was just over $4.4 million. Our expenditures just over $2.1 million, giving us an ending balance of just over $5.5 million. It's one of those 2 or 3 months out of the year that we actually have excess of receipts over expenditures. Okay, the next page is the schedule of revenue. And this is at the end of May, so we're at the halfway mark here in our fiscal year. Our target's 50%. Up under the current levy, you see that 2.5 in there, bringing us to about 29% of a levy received. As far as fees, the Community Health Center did really well this month, last month with fees, just over $433,000. Much of that attributed to Medicaid and Medicaid fee-for-service. Mental health and addictions, $157,820, up $90,000 of that was from SAS. So overall, total fees and reimbursables, we rounded out 43%. Excuse me. Down to our grants. Community Health Center grant totals at about 47%. Family Health Services at 60%. Behavioral Health at 58%. Overall, agency-wide on our grants for 53%. So we're right on target with our grants. Overall, agency revenue is at 42%. Just as a kind of a comparison, and we like to look back previous years, this time last year we were at about 44%. So we're really in the ballpark there. As I stated, the statement of expenditures for May 2014, the correct one, should be ending with percent used at 42.8%, which is right in line with our revenue. So that's a good thing. And then the last is our capital improvement fund. We received just over $1 in interest. Again, that fund really didn't move much. It's still at $39,633.07. Okay, this is the time for our Q2 report, our quarterly report for the agency. That should be at your desk. And so that it's a little bit easier this time, I did number them 1, 2, and 3. So that might be a little bit easier. And I did do some highlighting. I know there's a lot of numbers on here. I think you're probably familiar with the document by now. You're familiar with what we're trying to accomplish here. What I'd like to call to your attention is each one of the divisions or departments, whether it be emergency preparedness, any of the other divisions, behavioral health, community health center, and admin, all of us. At the bottom of page 1 is a summary. What basically we're looking at is our expense over revenue and the percentages. Emergency preparedness and response, 39% in expense, 48 revenue. Environmental health, 43 and 50. Behavioral health, 43 and 41. Community health center, 41, 39. Page 2, family health services, expense 43%, revenue 50. Administration, expense 45, revenue 27. Of course, that's where the levy comes in there. And then, of course, overall, 43%, 42%. So they were neck and neck. So that's what we're looking at quarterly. If you look at the actual expenses that are broken out, salary, fringe, supplies, services, etc., they range from anywhere from 10 to 51, 52%. So none are exceeding where we really should be. Some are under. Those typically have to do with cyclical expenses. And then on the last page, there's just kind of a summary here of net gain and loss. All this is predicated on 29% of our levy that we've received so far. That number matches what's on your schedule of revenue. And the net gain for each division is at the bottom. EP&R, environmental, etc. Those are all at the bottom for your review. Any questions?
all of this is pure cash flow, right?
Correct. Yes, this is cash basis.
So
Just like the
the
schedule
levy
revenue.
amount that you distributed to each division was cash.
Yes, that's correct.
We usually spoke of the outstanding receivables from the state. Are we still keeping track of the number of days outstanding of the state payment of revenue?
I don't have that number for you today, but something we certainly can look at. We do track it. I do talk with Denise. I know I asked her this morning for the receivables and the billing in the community health center, but I didn't ask her for any of those other numbers. I can certainly present those to you on a regular basis if you'd like.
Well,
We do
we'd
look
like
at those.
to see them from time to time to see if the state's stringing them out again. At one time, you remember, it was very, very long.
Right, right. Certainly.
So maybe in August, you can tell us what it is.
Sure. Be happy to.
Are there any other questions on the treasurer's report? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second, Dr. Strites, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We'll move on now to our divisions. We might just as well start with you, Sue.
Okay. We have a couple of things on the agenda that we'd like to request action for discussion, so I'll save that for then. I wanted to give you just a little bit more information about the wellness initiative. Stacy Whitehead, our HR manager, and I went to the county just this afternoon prior to the meeting for a meeting on the wellness initiative. And as you can imagine, it's a very big initiative for the county to roll out. It does pertain to all employees, in the county. And so they're having a couple of bumps in the road, but we're working through them, getting a good response. I have to say that the health department is a little bit ahead of the game here. We've had a wellness committee at our agency now for, what, a couple of years at least?
Since 2011.
Okay,
3 years.
since 2011. So they're requesting some information and working with one of our co-chairs, Dave Dolos. He's also on the wellness committee at the county, and so they're gathering a lot of good information. They're putting out a lot of flyers. They're disseminating the information pretty well. And the way that the wellness initiative works is, we are now required to go through this initiative because of the bargaining that took place in the fall. It's with our health insurance program. The whole idea is to get the workforce healthy. And so there's several numbers of steps that staff have to do. And the first one is to register, and then they have to complete a biometric screening, as I stated in my report. We have to also fill out a questionnaire asking for history and just information about the individual. Then we are required to designate a primary care physician, which is always a good thing to have a regular physician that works with you. And then we're also going to participate in some of the wellness programs. They have initiatives that they're going to be rolling out. There's also a penalty if you don't participate, or if your spouse does not participate in the program and they are on the health insurance. So it's a good program. I think it's going to overall be a good benefit for the employees and their spouses. So I'll bring more information to you as it becomes available and as we move through the program. That's really all I have.
You might want to mention that this is done, what is the wellness program, number one? It's something that everyone has to participate in.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Well, you don't have to participate, but if you don't participate, you'll be penalized.
Yeah.
And that penalty does go up every year. Correct.
So in addition to participating, you have to do certain things, and you listed some of them.
Right.
The other one is that you also have to do some lab.
Yes, the biometric screening is the lab. They're looking at cholesterol and BMI,
Blood sugar.
triglycerides, blood pressure. There's 5 parameters that they're looking for. And if you can meet 3 of the 5 parameters, then you'll be provided with an incentive. Now, even if you don't meet those parameters, let's say you do have some complicated health issues and you can't meet those 3 of those 5 parameters, as long as you participate in some wellness coaching, in going online and providing, getting some wellness education, you can still get that incentive. So they're trying not to exclude anybody, and they're really trying to just overall make people better educated about wellness and how it really translates into, higher insurance costs and higher payouts, and just overall, kind of a negative effect on the workforce.
How's this work for new hires?
For new hires, they'll be introduced to it at orientation. They'll get information in their onboarding packet, and just kind of, I guess, depending on when they come in, like right now we're going through all of this in June, July, August. The penalties start in September 1. So I guess it's just cyclical how they'll work in with it. Next year, they're looking at maybe 30 days.
If somebody enrolls for the benefits, it comes active in 30 days from the time they enroll. That's when the clock starts for.
Okay, for them to get their screening.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
But could it used for exclusion for employment?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, and they're going through a third party. The county has contracted with a company called Wellvation, and Wellvation works in conjunction with Mayo Clinic. There are hundreds of these throughout the United States, probably thousands. I heard a statistic today, about 71% of employers are now working with some kind of wellness initiative, so I thought that was very promising. So we're really kind of getting on the wagon now, which is, I think, better than ever. But
About 3,000 people in the county, I think, are eligible to go through this initially.
So what you started in 2011 was just a program to get to feel better and be well.
Right.
Now it's linked with insurance.
Exactly. The 2011 to the present was just our own health department doing some education, putting on some walking competitions. Now it's tied actually to insurance, like you said.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Is that it, Sue? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to behavioral health.
Just 3 quick items in response to length of time before we get our checks. For our SAS program, the recent check for $205,833 were for services provided in February and March of this year. So we're getting a pretty quick turnaround on SAS. I also want to report it on 2 pieces of legislation that will impact us. Senate Bill 2187. The State Senate, State House of Representatives has passed the prescribing psychologist bill. And they actually did it after a meeting and with collaboration with the Illinois Psychiatric Society and the LNA Advanced Nurse Practitioner Group. So it now goes to the governor's desk for signature. So this might be one of the possible solutions for the acuity of the shortage of psychiatrists.
Joe,
Yeah.
how many people do we have on staff that would be qualified under that legislation to write prescriptions?
Well, what they would have to do is go back to school. They would have to go back for a master's degree, postdoctorate master's degree in psychopharmacology, and then they would have to do a 1-year residency. Now, the exclusion here are psychologists coming out of the military who are prescribing psychologists. That if a military psychologist who's a prescriber, and in the military they've done it now for 20 years, if they come into the state, back to the state of Illinois, their licensing through the military translates to state licensure.
So this could help us in that it increases the pool of people that we can
Correct.
hire who could prescribe,
Yeah.
but as far as any people on staff,
The closest one would be Dr. Rita Gray, who is a registered nurse, And because of her years as a med-surg nurse, she might contemplate going for it. So we definitely would have one person who would be pretty close to it. I wouldn't be surprised if the exam was available now, that she would be able to pass it again because of her med-surg experience for decades over at Rush.
Any grandfather clause in that legislation?
No, not at all. Yeah, it's by training and by residency and by a national exam, which already
How long do
exists.
you think it's going to take you to get on board with everybody?
Well, the governor has to sign on first, and once that starts, one of the places I'll start looking at is our psychologist completing their active duty tour with the military. And Illinois would be an appealing state. There would be only 3 states initially that would be competitive. By the way, there's some recent legislation at the federal level that they're looking at doing this in the VA system. The VA has a few problems, as you've been hearing. And one of the problems they have is the shortage of psychiatrists, and this would also be a possible resolution. So, as I say, we'll see. The final bill that was passed, and this is good for Will County, Senate Bill 822. It takes the initial bill, which says the sale of state-operated facility property has to be reinvested in the community. The initial bill, the interpretation was, and they were looking at selling Tinley, and the property, the money to be reinvested could be reinvested statewide. The legislators got through this bill, which was passed, which basically says when Tinley is sold, that money must be reinvested in the region that Tinley served. So that strengthens that bill, and once the property is declared a surplus for sale, then we'll see a possible movement on it. It's gone through that first phase where it was put out to other state agencies, where if they were interested in the property and no one expressed an interest in the property. So declaration of being surplus and then going through the sale process is next. We could conceivably see all this take place as soon as this year. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Troiano? Okay, thank you, Doctor. All right, Mary.
Hello, good afternoon. I have 2 items for discussion later, and so I will leave those till the end. We're going to begin some prenatal group education classes conducted by our nurse midwife, beginning at the end of this month. I submitted a grant proposal for some funding to get some more affordable care counselors to enroll family planning patients into health insurance. We plan to apply for an expansion grant through the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois suddenly has money to give out. And so we are going to apply for a new generator, some equipment to outfit the dental van for medical, and this should be good news to your ears, for an LED sign, for a message sign for outside the community health center.
It's good.
Like that, John?
Yeah. 5 years.
Longer than 5 years.
So you'll be the first to know if we get that money. And then we also received notice that we can apply for a non-competitive grant from HRSA for as much as $234,000 a year for 2 years. And it is for, half of it is for expansion of our medical services. So we hope to add a nurse practitioner. And the other half can be for expansion of other services, and we're going to ask for a full-time mental health practitioner. We're moving along. We did sign the contract with OSIS for the hosting of our EHR, and we gave notice to ENET that we will terminate their services in November. Still working along with the managed care contracts. We have a couple that are signed now. And we did receive a notice of award of $14,000 from the United Way. That was the same amount of money that they awarded us last year, in spite of complaining that they didn't get as much donations this year. So we feel really fortunate. And that money is earmarked to be used for the dental van to provide free care to the people at the shelters. And then, John, should I wait for the other items?
Yes, they're on our agenda, so we could just cover those on the agenda, as part of the agenda.
Okay. And then I'd like to give apologies for Dr. Ehrman. He has a big report that is due at the end of the day today, so he will be coming as soon as possible, but I can go through his report. And so he has the division statistical report. You'll see earlier in your packet. Well, unfortunately, this last month didn't look as good as the previous months. I don't really have a lot of explanation, except you can see that the dental business is in really good shape. And so we're looking into, we're now having a full court press trying to, our top priority is to what we can do to increase more patients. And so we're working on some marketing ideas and customer service and what all else we can do to try to compete in this environment. Dr. Ehrman and I have been out in the community trying to get the message out as well.
I have a question. I think I may have forgotten when we started our agreement with Aunt Martha's. There was a question whether we had to have Aunt Martha's doctors sign a contract with us to be covered by our tort reform. And is that what actually happened?
No, they did not. They did not have to. We actually had a phone call with them this week with the head of their OB-GYN department. They still have just one physician, Dr. Albee, who is sharing the call. The other physician that we happened to note on the schedule was just a contractual physician. So
That was Dr. Arrington.
Dr. Arrington is contractual like Dr. Marche is.
Which brings me to the question, if they're covering for us or we're covering from them, can they make side agreements with themselves, or do they have to come back and get permission from Dr. Ehrman?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
You're talking about if one of their doctors wishes to either call off on the call and assign it to someone else? Is that what?
What I'm saying is if a Dr. Marche is going to cover for us, and he decides that he wants to have Dr. Arrington or Dr. Albee cover for him, can they make those side agreements without permission from the health center?
Yes. And Dr. Marche does cover for them, for Aunt Martha's as well. They have their designated days to cover call, and however they can fill it. That's how that works out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then who gets the revenue for the...
Whoever delivers the baby. That's the revenue.
So if Marche is covering for us, he gives it to Arrington, who has a contract with Aunt Martha's, then does Aunt Martha get the revenue?
On the days that Dr. Marche is covering for us, let's say it's Monday and Tuesday, then we get the revenue. If on the days, let's say he's covering for Aunt Martha's on Wednesday and Thursday, then Aunt Martha's gets the revenue.
I guess what I'm saying is when they flip it to another doctor who's working for Aunt Martha's, does that doctor and Aunt Martha get it instead of us?
We don't have any of ours, Dr. Marche, we don't allow him to contract with anyone else. So,
So if our doctor is scheduled on that day, it's our doctor that does the work. Period.
right,
There's no ability for that doc to say, I'm going to hand it off to someone else.
right,
Well, that was my original question.
okay. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right, any other questions about the health center? You have some things that in the lower part of the agenda, so if you pass it on to Elizabeth.
Hello, good afternoon. I just have a few things to add to my report. Under the food program, I wanted to give you an update regarding our foodborne illness outbreak, which was Shigella flexneri. We had 6 individuals that were linked to this bacteria, and we actually had the employees all tested and they all cleared, and so the facility is back up and running. So that's a good thing that all the employees did clear. Under the food program, item number 2, the raw milk saga continues, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on that. The proposed rules went to a special rules committee that was scheduled on June 5th, and they did pass them on to the State Board of Health meeting, which was June 12th. Unfortunately, there was some problem with their notification. They didn't have proper notification, so they could not act on the raw milk rules on the June 12th meeting. Now, we did have people from NIPIC in the Chicago office for that meeting and in the Springfield office testifying at that meeting. They then scheduled a special meeting of the State Board of Health on June 17th, and they decided not to move forward on them and are postponing a decision to the July 23rd meeting, where that gives the local health departments and NIPIC more of a chance to review the most current rules and work with IDPH to redraft some sections of it. So that is very positive that they are working together with us. So we'll keep you posted on how that moves along. Also, under food program, item number 3, we did go before the Public Health and Safety Committee and with our proposed amendments to our food code, and we are scheduled for the public hearing in July. So once again, we'll keep you posted on how that continues to move. Summer feeding is all in progress, and I'm not sure if you know, but Governor Pat Quinn proclaimed June 16th as Summer Food Service Program Day in the state of Illinois, where the food program service provides, where children can access healthy, nutritious meals during the summer. And we have approximately 31 sites in Will County. That's been about how many sites we've had in the past couple of years. And we've done all of our pre-ops already, and we're on to the operational inspection. So we're well underway with summer feeding. Under West Nile, I wanted to introduce our summer intern, which is Caitlin Kessel. Caitlin is from University of Illinois. She is doing a very good job collecting mosquitoes, shipping birds, talking to people out in the field, larviciding swimming pools that are stagnant, a variety of things she's been helping us with. So thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome. We've had over 25 calls regarding dead birds. We've shipped 3, and we have 2 additional ones that we're potentially shipping. If you haven't checked out IDPH's website, I believe we're up to 6 counties now with positives, 1 positive bird, and 8 positive mosquito batches. None in Will County at this point, but once again, we'll keep you posted if we do get any positives. Other than that, I think there's an item on the agenda which we'll talk about later. Any questions?
I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't hear about the cupcake initiative.
That's on the agenda. I got a whole file of talking points, so just wait. So that's later on the agenda.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, Pat?
Okay, I don't have a lot. Our audits all went well. I've been talking about getting ready for audits for a while, and we haven't received anything in writing, of course, but all the exit interviews were pretty positive. WIC numbers are continuing to go up, which is great. We received notice yesterday that WIC came in pretty much level funding, so that'll be good for FY15. So we're happy about that. On my statistics page, if you notice, there was a asterisk here, that I had noticed doing these stats, I noticed that I had made a mistake in FY13. So we're going to have an asterisk for a little while. But it was just a simple mathematical mistake that apparently I didn't catch back then. So I'm glad I caught it now. No news yet on our in-person counselor grant. I know our grant's been extended through July and August. We're anticipating a new grant coming out in July for September 1st start. I know Cindy Jackson went to a meeting yesterday on this, and they want to assure us that the grant is coming out. They don't want to lose trained in-person counselors at any agency. So there's going to be a renewal, but it's a new process. We don't know what exactly it's going to entail. So we're still kind of waiting and see on that. And really, that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Pat, Jackie?
Hello. Nice to be back. Missed a couple meetings, so nice to be back. Just to let you know, we have one more drill to add here. Yesterday we had another one of those infamous drills, and those drills are in the case that we were to have a major issue in Will County and we did not have enough health department staff or staff specialties or those kind of things to help us, we could contact other county health departments to ask for help. And so every county health department must, or every group of health departments like the Southern Seven, they all have to do one of these drills per year. So if you figure there's the Chicago region has several counties in it, where every month we're doing a drill or two drills, and since our grant year ends the end of this month, we had two this month because we're trying to get them all in. So to make sure they get the grant deliverables, so we have a lot of them coming in. We just completed our staff call down. I'd hope to have the statistics for you, but we're waiting for one division for their numbers yet, and so hopefully in August I'll have those numbers for you. But we do two of those a year in which we call all of our staff, and this particular time we ask for some little different information. We ask for zip code information just so that we can begin to plan where our staff are in terms of when an event were to happen, where we might want to station them. So if somebody lives out in Crete, maybe that's the place we want to station them. And so we're looking for that information so we can begin to look at, with our open points of dispensing, where they might be closest to. And so going to that next step again with that. We've been involved in several exercises within the Chicagoland area, with Chicago, with the FEMA exercise, and also with regional catastrophic group exercise at Northern Illinois. And so we've had our volunteers were involved in that. We've had several health fairs. We're looking forward to Manhattan's Community Safety Night. Chief?
You got the wrong date.
I have the wrong date? Okay. Yeah, it was 7/28, isn't it? Yeah.
7/25.
7/25, okay. Looks like I did not change the last one, so I'll change that. And it's on my calendar, the right date. So we'll have some, we'll be there. And then you have our last, we're continuing to get certificates in from staff who are taking the IS training online, as well as those who took the class and are still not turned in their certificate. So I think we're doing very well as an agency to be at 94 and 90% of all of our people who have had it. This is a one-time only course, so every year we have to pick up those new people and the people who haven't done it yet. And other than that, we've finished all of our Tier 1 pod open points of dispensing sites, and in July we'll start on the Tier 2s, and we'll complete all of them Tier 2, 3, 4, and 5 by the end of this next grant year. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, there is, I was reading Vic Rialto's report, and in there he speaks of passing out releases combating smokeless tobacco addiction, and it's such a timely release of information since Tony Gwynn, the Hall of Famer, passed away with cancer, which they relate to smokeless tobacco. Two.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to old business. Mr. Cicero will talk about law enforcement face opiate overdose prevention.
I think this is probably the third month that we've touched on this, and this program continues to move forward. At tomorrow's monthly county board meeting, they will be approving the use of a federal grant called the Justice Assistance Grant to use the funds for this program. So through the county executive's office, they will be offering a service agreement to a contractor that will head this program up. It's going to come under their office, and the health department will work with that person. Dr. Triani and I, our medical advisor, Dr. Traeger, will all contribute what we need to contribute to allow that program to ramp up in Will County. So I think by the time we meet next time, this should be in progress. The program should be underway, working with those police jurisdictions that are interested in becoming trained to be able to administer naloxone by their officers. So.
Okay. EBO office lease.
Okay, I'm going to ask Sue to give us an update on where we stand. Recall, we've been talking for a couple of months about relocating the branch office that's currently in University Park. Been working with the landlord. We've identified a great space in Monee, and we've been working on lease arrangements, build-out design, and we're real close. And I'm going to ask Sue to present to you what we know as of today, and then I will ask how you would like to grant some approval for us to continue to work on this to get a lease signed off, because we cannot wait until your next meeting. I'd like some authorization to allow the president to sign off on this lease when we're ready to go. So.
Okay, thank you. We've been working with several individuals for this particular property. We've been working initially with a leasing agent, and then also a representative of the ownership of the plaza, as well as an architect and space utilization team. So we're really looking at this from all different angles and trying to do the best we can in preparing. Excuse me. The initial lease was presented from the ownership of the facility, and we took a look at it. I spent quite a bit of time with Buzz Kester looking at the lease. It's a 31-page lease. We went through page by page, and he reviewed it, and we had a discussion. He made several requests to change the lease so that the language was more in favor for our agency, or at least compliant and consistent with certain things that the county likes to have. In other words, there's a venue clause that we request be put in as far as having the venue for any kind of dispute being the 12th Judicial Circuit of Illinois, which is here in Joliet. Another one was a non-appropriation clause, which means that if for some reason dollars are not appropriated and we could no longer afford the lease, then we have an out for that, specifically for that. And then there were a couple of other things that he requested we put in there. So I sent that back to the leasing agent. We've worked through a couple of other drafts. We have a final document. They've agreed to everything that we have requested. So once I get a clean copy, I'm going to send it back over to Buzz Kester, have him take another look at it, make sure that I didn't miss anything, make sure that we're still in line with what State's Attorney's Office typically requests that we have in the lease. So we're comfortable with the lease. We also worked with a space utilization team, as well as all of our division heads that have affected staff at the Eastern Branch office. The space utilization team sent us 2 drawings to review. One of our managers, Jen Thomas, who actually manages up at East Branch office, her and the staff up there got together and they came up with 3 more plans. So we all got in one room, got our heads together, and came up with kind of another plan, a plan B, so to speak. I sent it back to the space utilization team, and they have done a good job. They came back just today with another drawing, taking into consideration all the requests that we made. So I just put that back out to the group late this morning, and we'll get some feedback there. But I think we're going to be able to use the space very well. It's just a little bit bigger than what we have in our current space. We rent 3,850 square feet at the University Park office now. This new one in Moni is 4,000 square feet, so just a little bit bigger. It has what we need. It'll be able to be built out as we need. And in all of our discussions, we have let the ownership know that we are looking for a turnkey operation. In other words, we don't have to put any dollars into this build-out whatsoever. It's being built from the ground up. There's gravel there. They're putting in walls, floors, plumbing, everything to our specifications, and we're not paying for that. So, they're looking at the fact that we're a good tenant. We plan on being there for a long time. We're the type of business that we have, the public health, is consistent with some of the other tenants that they have. It's a good match, and it's a very good location. We hope to increase services and be able to accommodate even more people. I don't know if any of you have been to the East Branch office, but it's really not a good location. It's far off the road. It's in a plaza that is old. It's not being very well maintained. There isn't a lot of traffic there. This whole new change is going to be good, very good. So we're comfortable with the space utilization. I think we're going to be comfortable with this lease as long as I can get State's Attorney's Office, their blessing on it. And as far as the costs, the build-out in and of itself is going to be about $250,000 to $300,000. Okay? Again, we're not paying a bit of that. The landlord is absorbing that. If we are to look at what our lease is at the current location at East Branch, and then where it would be at the new location, and he gave me a range, and I'll give you that range as well, we're talking about a 93-cent to a $2.43 increase.
Per square foot.
Per square foot. That's it.
Say that again, please.
A 93 to $2.43 increase per square foot. For a building that's 7 years old as opposed to about 30 years old. Better location, brand new building, better exposure, etc. The dollars are in the budget. We won't have to increase that line item for rental property. That little bit of increase is already incorporated into this year's budget, so moving forward, we won't have to budget more for that because it's not a huge increase.
In order to recover and amortize this build-out cost, obviously they're looking for a lengthy term. And that term is 7 years, which is not unrealistic because I think we've had either 5 or 7 year leases in Bolingbrook in the past, at least 5.
At least 5, yeah.
So
and we just signed another one before.
7 year initially with options for 2 renewals at 3 years each. So a 7, and then an option for 3 more, and then a second option for 3 more.
I just wanted to say, coming from University Park, that your health center was so scary. It was in that little corner, not much signage saying it was there, and all these stores on either side of it are empty.
We're lost. We're
right.
lost.
And this other one is right off of I-57. It's very accessible.
Right.
And it's a bright new look to it, too.
Right. And like Sue said, it fits the space. There's a dentist, a dental office, there's a chiropractic office, First Midwest Bank has a significant branch there.
Fitness center?
A fitness center, and then we've got a pretty big storefront there that would be health department. So I think it's a beautiful location compared to where we're at.
It's right off of I-57, the exchange there. It's very easy to find. I've done this myself, and Elizabeth or anybody else, Pat, have been trying to give directions to somebody to go to our East Branch office. It's difficult. So we're going to be able to be found like that. It's very easy to find, right off the exchange. Public transportation is not an issue. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good move.
And the goal is that, at least I know in behavioral health, is to really try and expand our services a little bit. Because the current location has not been a real busy location for your services. But I think you've got some plans, and we're looking to accommodate by picking up another office or two for your division.
Yeah, I was going to mention, now, remember, we have SAS for all of Will County. So we need to have SAS presence out there, and we also have, with the closure of Tinley and the large dollar amount we're getting, we've got to provide those crisis services also to that portion of the county. And that's better served with that as a satellite for crisis services, but also for follow-up. So it supports the two programs that we've been funded for.
Okay, I understand it's going to be 4,000 square feet, and the 93 cents to $2 per square feet. Is that the range that we're going to look at paying, or what is that?
That is the range that we have been given from the leasing agent, understanding that since we have this new plan, what they're trying to do is incorporate, as John said, kind of amortize their expenses over the lease. So part of that is building in the cost of some of this build-out in with our monthly lease. So we don't have the final figures yet as far as what the lease will actually cost on a monthly basis, but he gave me a range, and that's the $93 to $2.43,
So
more than what we're paying now. Per month.
More than what we're paying. Right, so the ballpark numbers are somewhere between $6,500 and $7,000 a month. And that range is reflective of that increase from what we pay now. We pay, by the time our rent is increased, if we stay where we're at, it's been up a 3% escalator.
It's a 3% every year.
We would be paying close to $6,000 where we're at now. So this is going to take us somewhere between $6,500 and $7,000. And I don't think that we'll have that pinned down until they truly finalize this plan with their builder. But what I'm going to ask for authorization is if we're in that range, and of course, we'll attempt to get
the best price.
Right, to get the best price and work on that lower number, is to get authorization, have board president sign off on this whenever it may be ready. That could be a week, 2 weeks, 30 days.
Yeah, as soon as we can get, the lease comfortable with myself and Austin State's Attorney's Office and get the price pinned down. So the lease expires at our current office on August 31st. So I don't know, it's very tight, obviously, as far as looking at when the build-out might occur and trying to move in, but we could try to go to a month-to-month with our current location. But we're trying to do this in a timely manner, and they've been very accommodating.
And we check on the notice currently, and what do we need to provide?
We have no notice. We are required to provide no notice whatsoever to our existing.
As far as 30 or 60% in the lease. We will certainly, if we land on this and we get it executed, we'll provide notice that we intend to leave, and we would like an extra month or two while we do the transition.
I provided the state's attorney's office with the current lease that we have at EBO. And
Code Adam, Wing E, Code Adam, Wing E, please.
And so he looked at that, and I looked at it myself, and I thought, I don't see anything in here, and he confirmed, there's nothing in our, Joe?
What's that, sir?
Are you going to take care of it?
Yeah.
There's nothing in the current lease that says that we have to provide them with any notice, but being, we want to do the right thing here, and as soon as we have the ability to know that we will be able to make the change, we'll give them proper notice.
We're dealing with a leasing agent, not the owner, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Then
They have several properties throughout, I don't know if it's throughout the country, I know they have several throughout the county, some throughout the state. They're pretty large.
So when you're negotiating with the leasing agent, he in turn has to negotiate with the owner.
Correct, yeah.
Do you know what his fee is?
Who's the leasing agent? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what cut he's getting, but he's very responsive. I mean, he's very responsive. He's doing a great job, so.
Well, I know, and that's probably why he's getting a good fee.
He's working for it.
Okay, well, I'll work with you on that. I think we'll entertain a motion then that once the figure is finalized, if it's within this range of 6,500 to 7,000, that the board gives approval for us to go ahead and sign the lease.
Move. Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to add one more thing to that. The staff in University Park are scared of, you open that door to go in and they look like they're being robbed. And I think this will just, it's going to be a good thing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we took security into account when we went through the space utilization, and there will be front counter areas that will be better, loaded safer for staff, and I think they'll feel more comfortable. And it's funny because it's in an area that's
High traffic.
It's high traffic. It's just a whole different area when you're there. But honestly, I met the space planner at the old EBO site, and then we drove to the new site, and I clocked it. It's like 6 minutes away.
Right.
I mean, it's not far at all. We're gonna.
Customer parking is within 30 or 40 feet of the door. Customer parking now, it must be 50 yards away, if not more. It's just a huge shopping center, and we're just buried in the corner.
Okay. We'll move on to the new business, and the first item is the resolution 1420, purchase of Lenovo desktop computers through CDW, not to exceed 30,000. And it's going to be Windows XP operating system. Who wants to tell us why these two computer desktops are so expensive?
Anthony, do you want to talk about this? You can maybe give the numbers as to how many units we're even talking about here.
We're looking at purchasing 50 computers based on each of the divisions here. Family Health Services is probably the one most in need because of the age of the computers. They're provided by the state, and they haven't been upgraded in a long time. So we're going to have the majority of those, but we'll also split it out throughout the other divisions.
So this represents a minimum of how many computers?
It's 50 computers.
50?
50 computers?
50.
$30,000?
500.
It's actually the quote that we received was what, 28,000.
Did you pick up the?
I'm sorry. The quote we received. Okay, the quote we received was $28,832, I think. But the reason why we put the not to exceed 30,000 is because sometimes when we go to place the order, it's a few dollars off, or it's $100 off, and we've gotten approval for a certain dollar amount. So that's why we said not to exceed 30.
About $600.
Well, what I would like to put on this is
Yeah, the whole computer.
just a
Not the
number of
monitor.
Not the monitor,
computers.
the mouse, and everything.
Right.
Okay.
I'd like to put a number of computers on this resolution.
We can revise it for that, sure.
How many do you want me to put out?
Yes, it's going to, we're buying in blocks of 50, so
50?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I just bought 7 of them for my vehicles, and it cost me $20,000.
I've never heard of this supplier.
Oh, they're
The CDW I have, but not the,
Lenovo is the brand.
oh, it's the brand.
It's the brand.
Lenovo's the brand.
I've never heard of it.
Well, that's a Chinese manufacturer that put took over the purchase of IBM computers, is that?
Yeah, they did the IBM personal computer market, also the low-end server market for IBM as well. So there's no more to know.
They're all made at the same place anyway.
Okay, well, I'm going to entertain a motion be made for Resolution 1420 to purchase 50 units of Lenovo desktop computers through CDW not to exceed $30,000.
So moved.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Resolution 1420, approval for renewal of cleaning services contracts, multi-system company for the Will County Health Department North Branch office at $950 per month. Is this the same one that we're using?
Yes, it is. We're happy with their services and same price.
Okay. Dr. Straits? Mr. Selko, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Resolution 1422, Community Health Center fee for school sport and camp physicals. This, I believe, was approved by the governing council, and since we approve fees, this is just kind of a we agree. So I'll
Move. Second.
Okay, Mr. Zelko, Mr. Brandolino, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Yeah.
Motions for 1420.
What's the
For the,
question?
for the computer purchase, the motion in the second?
Oh, yeah.
That was first and I think Jim was second.
Okay, Chief, Mr. Zelko.
All right, now we're down to the authorization for State's Attorney's Office to review executive session minutes. This is something we do every year, right?
Yes, pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, we're required to have the state's attorney's office review the closed session minutes to determine if any of them can be released to the public, and we're due to have that taken care of. So by this board authorizing that, Stephanie will work with a representative, get them in, and we'll get the review taken care of.
Okay, you need a motion? All,
Yes.
Second.
all in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, the county budget update.
Code M, all clear. Code M, all clear.
Sue?
Sure.
I'm
I'm sorry, I was waiting for Code Adam to stop.
Basically, get your act together. You talked about the budget. Sue?
Okay, just wanted to give you a little update on what's taking place. It is budget season. John and I have met with several of the division directors this week, and we first talked about expenses. As I stated in my report, we did receive our guidance from the county on May 30th, a little bit later than usual, but of course we'll use all that guidance and all those figures as far as FICA, IMRF, et cetera, when we build the budget. So we're looking at expenses now. Just about all of the expenses are entered into the budget. I will be providing John with a draft at the end of this week for him to take a look at. We'll be working on revenues starting next week. And our appointment with the county finance director and the new budget director of the county is July 11th. And they would like our budget to be completely in the new world system, and they'll be offering us an opportunity for discussion on July 11th. So that's where we're at.
A couple of comments I'd like to make. A is that today we received information from the Illinois Department of Human Services regarding our current grants, and at this point everything is level funding for fiscal 15, basically matching where we're at for fiscal 2014. So those will be the revenue estimates that we'll be using on the grant side. There's still some work that needs to be done on our fee-for-services and our reimbursements as far as revenue estimates. We'll be working through those next week, and then we should have a pretty good idea to pull this draft together. Now, my question is, in years past, we've had an opportunity to sit with Board President Hines to have a preliminary look at that document before it's submitted, since we do not meet in July. So I would ask perhaps how you'd like that handled, John, if you'd like an individual sit down to kind of show you where we're at. Recall, this is a extremely preliminary county budget that we submit at this time, and changes will be made between now and October, and then it's finally approved in November.
I'll be happy to look at it. Do have a volunteer that would like to look at it with me.
You're fine.
Well, I'll look at it by myself.
Okay, good. Thank you. We'll set time up.
We'll have a fundraiser.
Okay, we'll have the doors locked so you guys can't run out of here. Okay. All right, this is the big one. Food Handling Enforcement Act Amendment.
Okay, and I'll just preface a couple of comments, and then we'll have Elizabeth.
I have 10 copies of it.
We'll see if they wish to have it, but what I'd like to start the discussion off with is that the state legislature did pass a bill which was signed by the governor allowing some product to be cooked in home kitchens for distribution. What's the official name of the bill? I guess it's the
Home kitchen operation?
Home kitchen operation. And what we'd like to do is to have a discussion about what this means. The only way it would take effect is if a jurisdiction, i.e. a county or municipality, passes a local ordinance adopting this. Now, that's important to know. The fact that this has been signed off by the governor and passed by the legislature, it is not in effect until or unless a local jurisdiction passes a local ordinance. Now, there have been inquiries and calls already kind of coming into the county. A lot of calls going to the State Department of Health on what do we do about this? Is this in effect? Do we allow this? And the advice that they're giving is a local ordinance must be adopted for this to occur. So Elizabeth, I'd like you to speak to what's been passed, what it allows for, where we stand on this, and give the board an opportunity to weigh in and give us some guidance on this.
I'd like to give just a little brief history on how this came about. It actually started quite a while ago, back in February of this year. So down in Madison County, the health department did stop an individual from making baked goods, cupcakes, out of their home. And so this bill was drafted back in February and moved through the House. And as it was moving through, as part of NIPIC, we have individuals that watch legislation. So as the bill was moving through, we worked with Illinois Public Health Association and NIPIC, and we reviewed the bill and we drafted our opposition letters for the bill. Because originally the bill just basically said that you could produce and package non-potentially hazardous food in your home. Your gross sales did not exceed $1,000 a month. The food had to be non-potentially hazardous, and the notice had to be provided to the purchaser that it was produced in a home kitchen. So we had a lot of concerns. So NIPIC and IPHA put together our opposition. One of them is that non-potentially hazardous baked goods can still be a pathway that could cause foodborne illness. Pathogens like norovirus, salmonella, different things can still be transmitted through non-potentially hazardous items. One of the other things, too, is that there is a requirement currently in the state of Illinois called the cottage food law, where you can make certain non-potentially hazardous items in your home and sell them at a farmer's market. So there still is an avenue in the state where you could do something very similar. However, the cottage food law has a couple things that this did not. One is education. You have to be a certified food handler. This bill had no provisions for the person being knowledgeable about food safety and sanitation. The other thing, too, is the cottage food requires labeling. For example, there are numerous people throughout the state that are very allergic to a lot of different things. The cottage food bill does require labeling, while this bill had no labeling responsibility on the part of the person who was baking. One of the other concerns too was cleanliness. There was nothing in there to ensure that the home was clean. We had no jurisdiction to do an inspection. The only time we could get involved is if there is a complaint or a foodborne illness outbreak. And then finally, one of the other things was that it does impact, there are a lot of people who are opening actual bakeries, and we have people opening businesses and doing shared kitchens now to bake their items, doing it the way that the code requires them to do. You get a plan review, you get a permit, you get certified, you get your permit, and you sell out of your permitted facility. And then there was one other caveat, is that it says you can't have gross sales that don't exceed $1,000. Well, there's nobody watching that. So once again, it's a requirement that you have no idea if the people are in compliance with. So we put together back in March a opposition, and then IPHA also put an opposition together. We worked with the legislator, and Sean McDermott and actually myself worked on the amendment that required that a local ordinance be in place. We thought, well, you know what, if Madison County is okay with this and other counties are okay with this, let them implement an ordinance that does allow it. So Sean McDermott from Cook County and NIPIC worked together, and we came up with the last part of this bill that says that it has to be located in a municipality, township, or county where the local governing body has adopted an ordinance authorizing the direct sale of these baked goods. And so that stuck in the bill, and we are very proud that our amendment actually did remain in there.
What's the definition of local governing authority? Would that be a city? Could the city of Joliet go ahead and pass an ordinance?
Yes.
And then what does that mean for us? Then we have no authority over it, right?
It does appear that a municipality, a township, or a county could potentially pass a ordinance. Now, the problem is they have no responsibility currently for any food safety and sanitation in the county. The only one is Orland Park has the health inspectors, and then Tingley Park, they do. But I'm not really sure, when it got to that point, if individuals would say, well, that municipality has no jurisdiction at this point over any food safety.
And does that bill require any inspections or anything?
No.
No.
Only if there's an outbreak or a complaint do we actually have jurisdiction to, I guess, investigate it.
So certainly, if a municipality, this could be tested, like you said, but if a municipality comes forward and asks some questions of us, hey, it looks like we can allow this as a city, well, our response is going to be, well, if there's a problem or something, now we're involved. We're saying we don't believe in this, and we shouldn't be doing this. So I don't know whether or not they would move forward on something like that or not.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that a municipality has disagreed with the health department over enforcement in these particular areas, and they may jump at the chance to pass a local ordinance allowing their citizens to operate in compliance with that, in spite of what we might say. And you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I think that labeling is a very important thing, the allergies that people have.
I mean, there is an avenue, and we've gotten some calls, and we've directed people to go check out the cottage food requirements, which are allowable in the state of Illinois without a local ordinance, as long as you follow those requirements. Now, what's interesting is that on May 27th, when this bill was brought up to the Senate, it was voted down. However, they did what is called a parliamentary maneuver, and they reversed the vote, took another vote. What they had decided originally was Illinois Department of Public Health had asked to put in some of these requirements, the labeling, the training, and so they had actually proposed another amendment to this bill. That's why it failed. Then they went back on the same day, pulled out Illinois Department of Public Health's amendment, re-voted on the bill, and it passed. So I'm assuming that's what a parliamentary maneuver is, but it was passed on May 27th with IDPH's amendment out, but NIPIC's still in there with the local ordinance.
Do they have to have a business license?
No.
That's excluded as well.
You know, we also talked to like our building and zoning individuals and let them, you know, when we were doing these opposition reviews, we talked to some of our municipalities, we talked to our county, and instead, you know, from the zoning perspective, if this person is running a business, they could make the food in their home and sell it right in front of their house. They can sell it anywhere. So, you know, we were saying, you know, what would be your thoughts on, you know, zoning? And they were like, well, there's a whole bunch of issues. I mean, what about fire codes? What about all these kinds of things, you know? And maybe even the chief might, you know, weigh in on this. If people are, you know, cooking in their home that much and then storing or selling it outside their home, I don't know from a zoning perspective if they're violating those
What about
laws.
these churches and everybody that has, you know, bake sales?
No, bake sales are
Something
in.
else.
Those are in the technical release in the farmer's market, and there's specific requirements for bake sales. So the technical release says if it's a nonprofit organization doing a bake sale that is on an occasional basis, and they do have to placard, you know, that it's not made in a special kitchen. But that's,
Even like guys making hot dogs at a baseball game?
that is potentially hazardous food. They get a permit from us.
They
Yes.
do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless it's your own grill and you're cooking your own hot dogs.
Thank you.
What we wanted to do, we wanted to bring this here so you're aware of it. You're hearing where staff stands on this and what their recommendation is. So I guess what we would like is consensus of support of the board on this matter. Should inquiries come, should we be asked, where does the Board of Health stand on this?
What do you want us to do?
We would like you to agree with staff's recommendation that we not
We just
pursue.
refer people to the cottage.
The
Yes,
cottage food
yes,
law is
yes.
a great option.
That we not
Shared
pursue the
kitchens.
development of a local ordinance to allow it.
So it's in place already?
But really, we
If you do nothing,
The only
can't
problem
do
with the
that,
cottage
can
food
we?
law is if we have to sell it at a farmer's market.
You have to sell it at a farmer's market.
If the city of Joliet wants to pass it,
we're saying is this body. We're not saying what the city of
yeah,
Joliet.
we won't. I think you can get us to agree that we won't do anything about it, but that doesn't stop every municipality in the county doing it.
Understood.
There's
Yeah.
another great option too out there, it's called shared kitchens, and more people are doing this, where there's one kitchen, it's fully operational, it's up to code, and multiple individuals get a permit from us, and they go in, and so the structure, there's no capital investment, you know, it's just basically their time and their, you know, ingredients and things, but they don't have the capital investment of actually building a facility. So that's becoming very popular also.
And it's for personal use.
Um,
The food that they prepare is for their personal use.
No, it's for selling. We actually have multiple people using a commercial kitchen, one kitchen, several people get a permit,
Yeah.
and then they can sell their products, you know, wherever, they can go to different farmers markets or craft shows or wherever.
Did this all come from the little girl making the cupcakes?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes. Down in Madison County, yes.
So can my granddaughter still have a lemonade stand?
That's great.
Okay,
At a farmer's market.
I'll entertain a motion that the board supports the staff recommendation on the Food Handling Enforcement Act amendment. Is that the name of it?
And it's called home kitchen operation, is what the,
Well,
it's the food handling regulation, it's an amendment to the Food Handling Regulation Enforcement Act.
Yes.
Yes.
That's listed on your agenda.
Could we have it in writing, what we're supporting? Probably not.
Well,
Rich, we don't have a motion.
It will be in the minutes.
right? Yeah, we've got copies of the amendment if you'd like to read it.
Of the law, I have the law, and then I can always provide too the letters of opposition that IPHA and NIPIC wrote. If you want to, you know, I can get copies of those sent too, if that's something you want to see. But those were from February and March when the bill was just moving through the House.
Any other questions? I think if you want to give Mr. Brandolino a copy of what you have there,
Well,
and
John, I think that we could have voted on something that they're recommending, and you made 5 or 6 points, right?
Correct.
You had 5 or 6 issues.
that
Yeah,
you
and
were
that's,
concerned with.
exactly.
Is that too much to ask for what the 5 or 6 issues is?
No, you want to give them?
We can hand those out.
Yeah, I can make copies.
Is the rest of the board just want to say yes to
Well,
what you didn't see?
there was no motion required for this, correct?
No.
I mean, you just had wanted me to do an information,
Well, I
so I'm
guess
not
we wanted
sure.
to know where the board stood on this, so should we get inquiries on, is the Board of Health interested in developing a local ordinance on this? I know where we stand. And we
You need
discussed
board
it.
approval to proceed with the ordinance.
Right.
You don't need board approval to not do something, I don't think.
And what we're basically agreeing to is to support their decision.
Yeah.
This is what you're doing, nobody's opposed to that, so.
Yeah, so I don't believe a motion
We're
is
not
in order.
pursuing
You're not
it.
approving anything, you're not denying anything, you're just agreeing not to move forward with something.
Well, we don't have our attorney with us today,
No,
so
we don't. I think what Mr. Zelko says is correct. I mean, you really don't need a motion.
To not do something.
Right. We had no intention of moving this forward based on staff recommendation. We just
That's what I
wanted
thought
you
we
to know
were-
that.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
I was under the understanding you didn't want us to do anything.
I was just wanted to present this information so maybe we can get a consensus on if we do get questions. And that, I mean, if the board agreed that you don't want me to start working on an ordinance, then I won't start working on an ordinance.
I think that's what I heard.
Yeah.
So, I don't think we need, like Jim said, we don't need a motion to not do something.
Right. So you just saved yourself some work.
Well, thank you.
well, I think that you have to have some documentation that was discussed in our minutes.
Sure.
And it was the consensus of the board that we follow your recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, Community Health Center, School-Based Health Center at Joliet Central. Mary, you're going to talk to us about that?
Well, for, I would say about 6 or 7 years, I've been in contact with Superintendent McCarthy about getting a school-based health center at Joliet Central. There's such a needy population. In fact, they have a 54% graduation rate. And finally, I contacted her one more time this spring, and she said, Larry, I think we're ready. So Dr. Ehrman and I went and we spoke with her and Principal Randich, and we presented our proposal, and then last night we spoke to the school board. And what prompted our quick action is that I was tipped off by our HRSA project officer that we can expect soon a grant offering for a new access point. So we just wanted to be ready, and we are asking for your approval to pursue this idea.
What does it really mean?
They have a very large health office now inside Joliet Central High School. And there's one school nurse, and she can't possibly take care of all the healthcare needs. She says they have about 60 to 80 visits a day, and about 75% of those kids are sent home because she just can't properly evaluate them. So they're missing school. There's a high percentage, almost 20% of the kids have some disability, high rate of asthma. So it's a way to address the healthcare needs of this population.
Mary, that opportunity has not presented itself yet, correct?
No.
Okay, and should it become available, in other words, funding for this kind of a location, we would sit down, develop a business plan, take a look at a budget, take a look at a model, how do we staff it, what are the expenses, what are the revenues expected, and certainly we bring all that back to you is kind of a pro forma to show you what we're talking about.
I certainly feel as we are as a unit of the Will County Health Department, if this is a possibility to do, we should be doing it. That's the way I feel about it. And having been on the school board, I wasn't even aware of how long this about.
Thank you. We were thinking of bringing the dental man there too.
I think that's a good idea, you know that.
Mary, at the governing council, you were talking about the number of the children that may be on Medicaid, which would cause an encounter when you meet with them, and that would in turn cause revenue. So would you want to speak to that so the board would know that we're not just going to put something in there and not get some revenue out of it?
Well, we estimate probably 90% of the students are eligible for Medicaid. And those that are not currently insured, we will see that they are counseled to see if there is some eligibility for insurance. The ones that are left would be the undocumented, and we wouldn't charge them, but they would be in the vast minority. So,
So one thing that would help us along is that as of January 1st of this year, the Affordable Care Act actually allows school-based health centers, of which there's over 1,000 in the United States and 64 in Illinois, to actually right on the spot enroll students who are eligible for Medicaid into Medicaid. So that any student who is eligible, which there probably will be several dozen of them in this high school, because that's the way it is throughout the state and the country, there's a good percentage, there's 250,000 children under 18 in Illinois that actually are uninsured. Probably at least a third to a half of them qualify for Medicaid. So if they walked into the school-based health center, they could be immediately enrolled in the enrollment process, and we would get the same encounter rate of $133 that we get here in the health center. In Illinois as a whole, about 75% of all the kids who go to school-based health centers, which are not just in Chicago, the majority are actually outside Chicago and downstate, basically have Medicaid.
Well, I think that the consensus of the board, and if anyone has any different opinion, is that you should pursue this and develop a business plan and present it to us at the right time, of course going through your governing council who's responsible for services. And it sounds like a reasonably good idea to provide services to the people that need it within the city. Is there anyone have any objection to pursuing this study?
thank you very much. You should know that there was an employee of the Joliet Herald News at the school board meeting last night, and we're going to be in the newspaper tomorrow.
Do you get your picture taken?
No, we didn't.
We tried, the camera didn't work.
All right, thank you. And Dr. Ehrman, I'd like you to introduce the new employee for the electronic.
Well, thank you very much, President Hines. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Michael Cirillo, who's the first and new next-gen EMR project manager. So Michael brings a wealth of experience. He's a rare combination of someone I consider to be a real technological genius, but a very nice person who is very easy to get along with. He hasn't pulled out too many hairs in his first month, but he may start soon.
Well, we're pleased to have you on board, and
No, it's been great. So far, everything's fine, and no gray hairs yet, but they all come from my 3 girls that I have, but
this is the individual we've been talking about for the last 2 months that's going to be doing what we thought our trade association was going to be doing for a year, and now it's going to be in-house. We're going to be buying our licenses, and it'll be all in your bailiwick down over there at the health center.
I just want to say, because Michael is also too humble, I think, there's been a lot of very positive changes so far. I think the board probably understands that we actually don't have a whole lot of control over the product at this point until we get out of the control of the Illinois Primary Healthcare Association's ENET. Mary has submitted the documentation in the last month so that contract with them, which is a 180-day out clause, will be ending, I think, around the 1st of December. We don't expect they're going to let us out early, but in the meantime, Mike has worked both with the clinical staff, the clerical staff, and the financial staff, including quite a bit with Denise Bergen, to really help, I think, with the situation that we've had, that we inherited, which wasn't very good, but it's getting better by the day.
Thank you for coming to the meeting, Mike. We appreciate it. All right, now we're going to be going into the executive session, and we'd like for Mr. Cicero to tell us who he'd like to have stay.
I believe just Mary and Sue Olenek and Paul.
For sure, Paul, we'd like you to stay.
Thanks, everyone.